joining us. You missed a good deal of melodrama yesterday, which is what the Cowboys major in. It got very spicy as their longtime defensive end, Demarcus Lawrence, had a lot to say about his former team after leaving. He spent 11 seasons there. He was the face of that franchise for a while. He signed a 3-year, $42 million deal to go to Seattle. And in his first interview that we're aware of in Seattle, he said this.
Dallas is my home. I made my home there. You know, my family lives there. You know, I'm forever going to be there. But, you know, I know for sure I'm not going to win a Super Bowl there. So, yeah. Yeah. We here.
Okay. So you knew that was going to attract some attention, and from among others, it did. Micah Parsons, who chimes in on everything, and in this case, he quote tweeted that by saying, "This is what rejection and envy look like. This is some clown stuff." Well, Lawrence didn't let that comment go unchecked. He responded, "Calling me a clown won't change the fact that I told the truth. Maybe if you spent less time tweeting and more time winning, I wouldn't have left." Those are two separate, fascinating sentences, both of them equally interesting. Matt, why are you laughing like that?
Because I feel like that tweet needs to eat the beat behind it. Because Micah Parsons just got torched by Tank Lawrence.
Yeah.
No lies told, though.
Right.
No lies told by Tank Lawrence. I mean, at this stage in a player's career, if you can't sell winning at the highest level, there's no way the player is going to take the discount. And for Tank Lawrence, this is a guy that's been in Dallas across multiple coaches, across multiple quarterbacks, across different cores of players, and the results seem to be the same. And you know why the results are the same? It's because Jerry Jones, in this ever-elusive chase for credit post-Jimmy Johnson, has undermined the authority of the head coach at every single turn within that franchise. And that has been an impediment to creating the kind of culture that it takes in order to have success at the highest levels. And, G, I should know. I had to lead the Dallas Cowboys to win my damn championship. And the team that beat the best Cowboys team that I was a part of in 2007 was the New York Giants. And there was no reason from a talent standpoint that the Giants should have beaten the 2007 Dallas Cowboys, who had 13 Pro Bowlers. But they did on their way to winning Super Bowl 42. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that Jerry Jones still hasn't figured out that the best players don't always make the best team, but the best team always wins. The Dallas Cowboys haven't had trouble finding talented players, but they haven't figured out how to build a football team. And that's where the things are right now. I can't believe we're saying this. I was there in 2007. It's now 2025, and it's still the same problem.
It's 18 years later, yes.
And I look at it, and it's almost like Maverick and Iceman when you're watching Top Gun, where Iceman is Tank Lawrence, and he sees this young, talented kid that can do it all, and he's trying to get him to understand the sense of urgency which is needed to be able to win at the highest level and to do something that matters. When I first got to New England, I remember my cornerbacks coach saying to me, "No, there are no team reunions. You don't just bring back the 2010 Tennessee Titans team. The only way you bring a team back is if you hoisted a Lombardi trophy and you're Super Bowl champions." And that's what you're playing for as a player. And for Tank Lawrence, he gets to Seattle, and whether it's John Schneider, whether it's now Mike McDonald, this is an organization that he probably feels like whether we're winning it or not, we're stepping and we're all marching in the right direction to try to achieve that goal. Where to your point, CC, Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, for years we haven't seen a move like that.
Well, it just seems that like maybe in Seattle, that's the main thing, right? And in Dallas, that's one of the things. When I was a member of the Baltimore Ravens, it was all about winning, right? And everything we did was dedicated to winning. It seems like in Dallas, it's more about entertainment and all that type of stuff and being a brand and making money and being the most valued franchise. Listen, I never lost to the Dallas Cowboys because we always knew that they were front runners, that if we took them to deep water, no matter who it was, and as it came out, because they were Hollywood. They were Hollywood. They were a Hollywood team that was in Dallas that goes out to Oxnard. And a lot of those players walk around acting like they taking credit for what Emmett, Troy, and Michael Irvin did, right? They walk around with that provide. They have a sense of arrogance about themselves. You say, let me take y'all into this back alley and see if you're really about that smoke. And more times than not, they were never ready for that smoke.
And for those of us who are older, Roger Staubach and Tom Landry and Tony Dorsett and all of those, they have been a glamorous franchise for a very long time. But that's okay. They also were winning Super Bowls in those days. They were winning championships in those days. And now, by a wide margin, they have the longest drought of any team in the NFC of reaching the NFC Championship game. Every team in that conference has played in the NFL's Final Four more recently, in fact, much more recently than the Cowboys.
Yeah, and I think the problem is, look, Demarcus Lawrence didn't leave because he couldn't win a championship in Dallas. He left because Seattle guaranteed him $18 million. I mean, let's put that right.
No
okay,
doubt.
so that's. But he had something to say. Like he had been saving it up, right? I could make the case of like, why weren't you saying it when you were there? Like who lays down the law there and tries to make it all about?
Hold on, Greg.
No, I'm asking. Like,
Jordan Lewis did try to say it back in September. It just disappeared into the ether. But he said guys are not doing what they need to do during the course of the week to give us a chance to win on Sunday.
And it didn't
said it, and nobody paid attention to it.
And maybe that's what Demarcus Lawrence is talking about. Maybe he's saying, no matter what we do, it wasn't going to catch because it wasn't going to develop that attitude, that relentless, all about winning attitude. And that's whether he's right or not is almost irrelevant because he's saying it, and you start to hear it like Dalton Schultz when he signed with the Texans talked about the tours and everything. Yeah. Now there's an external perception. You talk about when you played against them, how you thought they were soft. Like when we get close to the playoffs and Dallas is in the mix, you talk to people around the league and you hear a lot of that. Well, they'll always blow it. Right? That's become the perception of this team. Accurate or not, that is hurtful to your franchise, and it's going to make it does make it difficult to attract talent.
I want to pick up, Chris, on what you obviously seized onto there. The tone is not set by the leadership in the locker room. The tone is set upstairs. The tone is set by the owner who talks right after the game and then has a radio show on Tuesday. So it's impossible in that moment. If you're saying the coach can't take control of the circumstances, how is a player going to when Micah Parsons can have a podcast in which he names the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL and doesn't name his own, in which CeeDee Lamb has a family member posting he'd be better off in Houston, I'd much rather him playing with C.J. Stroud, and to the best of our knowledge, nothing happens. Like, there are no consequences for these things because they are part of the soap opera. They literally, I mean, when I was a kid, there was a soap opera on TV called Dallas. Yeah. They've now just sort of picked it up and moved it. And they like it. And it's okay. Look, it's worked. It's impossible to argue it hasn't worked. He could sell that team right now for $15 billion. So it's hard to argue with it working. But the point is, from a football perspective, that I think is where the problem is.
Well, one of the things that I learned being a part of the NFL for over a decade is that the locker room polices itself. Now, it's up to the head coach to empower the leaders in the locker room, but those guys police themselves. So the players have not absolved the blame. And I remember when they lost to the Green Bay Packers in the wild card round a couple of years ago, Tank Lawrence was one of the ones that said, we were too burnt out to play and be at our best. That's a cultural issue. When Micah Parsons, your best player, feels like he needs to respond to everybody that has something to say about the Dallas Cowboys, that's a cultural issue. Your best player lacks the maturity that it takes to set the tone for the team and to get them to focus on the task at hand. I mean, we can sit here and blame it all on Jerry Jones, but Jerry Jones ain't throwing no passes and Jerry Jones ain't making no tackles. That's the guys on the field that are responsible for that, and they're not doing a good enough job.
But that's the thing,
Jerry Jones is setting the standard, right? He's setting the culture. He's also selecting the players that's supposed to come in there. It's not always about the best players. It's about the best collective team. And sometimes you got to bring guys in that has that type of leadership qualities. You can't just have talented players. You got to have leaders as well.
The last tweet in the sequence from Demarcus Lawrence, where he says to Micah Parsons, if you spend more time winning.
I'll read it. Yeah. Maybe if you spent less time tweeting and more time winning. Right.